The nightlight was trimmed. The shadow of the punkah wavered across the room, and the flick of the punkah towel and the soft whine of the rope through the wall hole followed it. Then the punkah flagged, almost ceased. The sweat poured from Spurstow's brow. Should he go out and harangue the coolie? It started forward again with a savage jerk, and a pin came out of the towels. When this was replaced, a tom-tom in the coolie lines began to beat with a steady throb of swollen artery inside of some brain-fevered skull. Spurstow turned on his side and swore gently. There was no movement on Hummel's part. The man had composed himself as rigidly as a corpse, his hands cinched at his sides. The respiration was too hurried for any suspicion of sleep. Spurstow looked at the set face. The jaws were clenched. There was a pucker around the quivering eyelids. He's holding himself as tightly as ever he can, thought Spurstow. What in the world is the matter with him? Hummel! Yes, said in a thick, constrained voice. Can't you get sleep? No. Head hot? Throat feeling bulgy? Or how? Neither, thanks. I don't sleep much, you know. Feeling pretty bad? Pretty bad, thanks. There's a tom-tom outside, isn't there? I thought it was my head at first. Oh, Spurstow, for pity's sake, give me something that will put me asleep, sound asleep, if it's only for 6 hours. He sprang up, trembling from head to foot. I haven't been able to sleep naturally for days. I can't stand it. I can't stand it. Poor chap. That's no use. Give me something to make me sleep. I tell you, I'm nearly mad. I don't know what I say half my time. For 3 weeks I've had to think and spell out every word that has come through my lips before I dare say it. Isn't that enough to drive a man mad? I can't see things correctly now, and I've lost my sense of touch. My skin aches. My skin aches. Make me sleep. Oh, Spurstow, for the love of God, make me sleep sound. It isn't enough merely to let me dream. Let me sleep. All right, old man, all right. Go slow. You aren't half as bad as you think. The floodgates of reserve once broken, Hamel was clinging to him like a frightened child. You're pinching my arm to pieces. I'll break your neck if you don't do something for me. No, I didn't mean that. Don't be angry, old fellow. He wiped the sweat off of himself as he fought to regain composure. I'm a bit restless and off my oats, and perhaps you could recommend some sort of sleeping mixture, bromide of potassium. Bromide of Skittles. Why didn't you tell me this before? Let go of my arm and I'll see if there's anything in my cigarette case to suit your complaint. Spurstow hunted among his day clothes, turned up the lamp, opened the little silver cigarette case, and advanced on the expectant Hummel with the daintiest of fairy squirts. The last appeal of civilization, he said, and a thing I hate to use. Hold out your arm. Well, your sleeplessness hasn't ruined your muscles. What a thick hide it is. Might as well inject a buffalo subcutaneously. Now in a few minutes the morphia will begin working. Lie down and wait. A smile of unalloyed and idiotic delight began to creep over Hummel's face. I think, he whispered, I think I'm going to go off now. Gad, it's positively heavenly. Spurstow, you must give me the case to keep you. The voice ceased as the head fell back. Not for a good deal, said Spurstow to the unconscious form. And now, my friend, sleeplessness of your kind being very apt to relax the moral fibre in little matters of life and death, I'll just take the liberty of spiking your guns. He paddled into Hummel's saddle-room in his bare feet and uncased a 12-bore rifle, an express, and a revolver. Of the first he unscrewed the nipples and hid them in the bottom of a saddlery case. Of the second he abstracted the lever, kicking it behind a big wardrobe. The third he merely opened, and knocked the dull-head bolt of the grip up with the heel of a riding boot. That's settled, he said, as he shook the sweat off his hands. These little precautions will at least give you time to turn. You have too much sympathy with gun-room accidents. As he rose from his knees, the thick, muffled voice of Hummel cried in the doorway, You fool! Such tone as they use who speak in the lucid intervals of delirium to their friends a little before they die. Spurstow started, dropping the pistol. Hummel stood in the doorway, rocking with helpless laughter. That was awfully good of you, I'm sure, he said, very slowly, feeling for his words. I don't intend to go out by my own hand at present. I say, Spurstow, that stuff won't work. What shall I do? What shall I do? And panic terror stood in his eyes. Lie down and give it a chance. Lie down at once. I daren't. It will only take me halfway again, and I shan't be able to get away this time. Do you know it was all I could do to come out just now? Generally I am as quick as lightning, but you had clogged my feet. I was nearly caught. Oh, yes, I understand. Go and lie down. No, it isn't delirium. It was an awfully mean trick to play on me. Do you know that I might have died? As a sponge rubs a slate clean, so some power unknown to Spurstow had wiped off Hummel's face of all that stamped it for the face of a man, and he stood at the doorway in the expression of his lost innocence. He had slept back into terrified childhood. Is he going to die on the spot? Thought Spurstow. Then aloud, all right, my son, come back to bed and tell me all about it. You couldn't sleep, but what was all the rest of that nonsense? A place down there, said Hummel, with simple sincerity. The drug was acting on him by waves, and he was flung from the fears of a strong man to the fright of a child as his nerves gathered sense, or were dulled. Good God, I've been afraid of it for months past, Spurstow. It's made every night hell to me, and yet I'm not conscious of having done anything wrong. Be still, and I'll give you another dose. We'll stop your nightmares, you unutterable idiot. Yes, but you must give me so much that I can't get away. You must make me quite sleepy, not just a little sleepy. It's so hard to run then. I know it. I felt it myself. The symptoms are exactly as you describe. Oh, don't laugh at me, confound you. Before this awful sleeplessness came to me, I tried to rest on my elbow and put a spur in the bed to sting me when I fell back. Look! By Jove! The man had been rowelled like a horse, ridden by the nightmares with a vengeance, and we all thought him sensible enough. Heaven send us understanding. You don't like to talk, do you? Yes, sometimes. Not when I'm frightened. Then I want to run, don't you? Always. Before I give you your second dose, try to tell me exactly what your trouble is. Hummel spoke in broken whispers for nearly 10 minutes, while Spurstow looked into the pupils of his eye and passed his hand before them once or twice. At the end of the narrative, the silver cigarette case was produced, and the last words that Hummel said as he fell back for the second time were, "Put me quite to sleep, for if I'm caught, I die. Yes, we all do that sooner or later, thank heaven, who set a term to our miseries," said Spurstow, settling the cushions under the head. It occurs to me that unless I drink something, I shall go out before my time. I've stopped sweating, and I wear a 17-inch collar. He brewed himself scalding hot tea, which is an excellent remedy for the heat apoplexy if you take 3 or 4 cups of it in a time. Then he watched the sleeper. A blind face that cries, that can't wipe its eyes, a blind face that chases him down corridors. Decidedly Hummel ought to have got to go on leave as soon as possible, and, sane or otherwise, he undoubtedly did rowel himself most cruelly. Well, heaven sent us understanding. At midday Hummel rose, with an evil taste in his mouth, but an unclouded eye and a joyful heart. "I was pretty bad last night, wasn't I?" said he. "I've seen healthier men. You must have had a touch of the sun. Look here, if I write you a swinging medical certificate, will you apply for leave on the spot?" "No." "Why not? You want it." "Yes, but I can hold on till the weather's a little cooler." "Why should you, if you can get relieved on the spot?" "Bucket is the only man who would be sent, and he's a born fool." "Oh, never mind about the line. You aren't so important as all that. Wire for leave, if necessary." Hummel looked very uncomfortable. "I can hold on till the rains," he said evasively. "You can't. Wire to the headquarters for Burkett." "I won't. If you want to know why, particularly, Burkett is married, and his wife has just had a kid. She's up at Simla in the cool, and Burkett has a very nice billet that takes him into Simla from Saturday to Monday. That little woman isn't at all well. If Burkett was transferred, she'd try to follow him. If she left the baby behind, she'd fret herself to death. If she came, and Burkett's one of those selfish little beasts who are always talking about their wife's place being with their husband, she'd die. It's murder to bring a woman here just now. Burkett hasn't the physique of a rat. If he came here, he'd go out, and I know she hasn't any money, and I'm pretty sure she'd go out too. I'm salted in a sort of way, and I'm not married. Wait till the rains, and then Burkett can get thin down here. It'll do him heaps of good." "Do you mean to say that you intend to face what you have faced till the brain breaks?" "Oh, it won't be so bad now you've shown me a way out of it. I can always wire to you. Besides, now I've once got into the way of sleeping, it'll be all right. Anyhow, I shan't put in for leave. That's the long and the short of it. My great Scott, I thought all that sort of thing was dead and done with. Bosh! You do the same for yourself. I feel a new man thanks to the cigarette case. You're going over to the camp now, aren't you? Yes, but I'll try and look you up every other day if I can. I'm not bad enough for that. I don't want you to bother. Give the coolies gin and catsup. Then you feel all right? Fit to fight for my life, but not to stand out in the sun talking to you. Go along, old man, and bless you. Hummel turned on his heel to face the echoing desolation of his bungalow, and the first thing he saw standing in the veranda was the figure of himself. He had met a similar apparition once before, when he was suffering from overwork and the strain of the hot weather. This is bad, already, he said, rubbing his eyes. If the thing slides away from me and all in one piece, like a ghost, I shall know it is only my eyes and stomach that are out of order. If it walks, my head is going. He approached the figure, which naturally kept at an unvarying distance from him, as is the use of all spectres that are born of overwork. It slid through the house and dissolved into swimming specks within the eyeballs as soon as it reached the burning light of the garden. Hummel went about his business till even. Then, when he came in to dinner, he found himself sitting at the table. The vision rose and walked out hastily. Except that it cast no shadow, it was in all respects real. No living man knows what the week held for Hummel. An increase of the epidemic kept Spurstow in camp among the coolies, and all he could do was to telegraph to Mottram, bidding him to go to the bungalow and sleep there. But Mottram was 40 miles away from the nearest telegram, and knew nothing of anything save the needs of the survey till he met, early on Sunday morning, Lowndes and Spurstow, heading towards Hummel's for the weekly gathering. Hope the poor chap's in a better temper, said the former, swinging himself off his horse at the door. I suppose he isn't up yet. I'll just have a look at him, said the doctor. If he's asleep, there's no need to wake him. An instant later, by the tone of Spurstow's voice calling them to enter, the men knew what had happened. Then there was no need to wake him. The puka was still being pulled over the bed, but Hummel had deported this life at least 3 hours. The body lay on its back, hands cinched by the side, as Spurstow had seen it lying 7 nights previously, and in the staring eyes was written terror beyond the expression of any pen. Mottram, who had entered behind Lowndes, bent over the dead and touched the forehead lightly with his lips. "Oh, you lucky, lucky devil," he whispered. But Lowndes had seen the eyes, and withdrew shudderingly to the other side of the room. Poor chap, poor old chap. And the last time I met him, I was angry. Spurstow, we should have watched him. Has he... Deftly Spurstow continued investigations, ending by a search round the room. No, he hasn't, he snapped. There's no trace of anything. Call the servants. They came, 8 or 10 of them, whispering and peering over each other's shoulders. When did your sahib go to bed? Said Spurstow. At 11 or 10, we think, said Hummel's personal servant. He was well then? How should you know? He was not ill, as far as our comprehension extended, but he had slept very little for 3 nights. This I know, because I saw him walking much, and especially in the heart of the night. As Spurstow was arranging the sheet, a big straight-necked hunting spur tumbled on the ground. The doctor groaned. The personal servant peeped at the body. What do you think, Chumma? Said Spurstow, catching the look on the dark face. Heaven-born, in my opinion, this that was my master had descended into the dark place, and there has been caught because he was not able to escape with sufficient speed. We have the spur for evidence that he fought with fear. Thus I have seen men of my race do with thorns when a spell was laid upon them to overtake them in their sleeping hours, and they dared not sleep. Chumma, you're a mudhead. Go out and prepare seals to be set on the sahib's property. God has made the heaven-born. God has made me. Who are we to inquire into the dispensations of God? I will bid the other servants to hold aloof while you are reckoning the tale of sahib's property. They are all thieves and would steal. As far as I can make out, he died from, anything, stoppage of the heart's action, heat, apoplexy, or some other visitation, said Spurstow to his companions. We must make an inventory of his effects, and so on. He was scared to death, insisted Lowndes. Look at those eyes. For pity's sakes, don't let him be buried with them open. Whatever it was, he's clear of all trouble now, said Mottram softly. Spurstow was peering into the open eyes. Come here. Can you see anything there? Can't face it, whimpered Lowndes. Cover up the face. Is there any fear on earth that can turn a man into that likeness? It's ghastly. Oh, Spursto, cover it up. No fear. On Earth, said Spursto. Mottram leaned over his shoulder and looked intently. I see nothing except some grey blurs in the pupil. There can be nothing there, you know. Even so, well, let's think. It'll take a half a day to knock up any sort of coffin, and he must have died at midnight. Lowndes, old man, go out and tell the coolies to break ground next to Jevons's grave. Mottram, go round the house with Chumma and see that the seals are put on things. Send a couple of men to me here, and I'll arrange. The strong-armed servants, when they returned to their own kind, told a strange story of the Doctor Sahib vainly trying to call their master back to life by magic arts, to wit, the holding of a little green box that clicked onto each of the dead man's eyes, and a bewildering muttering on the part of the Doctor Sahib, who took the little green box away with him. The resonant hammering of the coffin lid is no pleasant thing to hear, but those who have experience maintain that it is much more terrible is the soft swish on the bed linen, the reeving and unreeving of bed tapes, when he who has fallen by the roadside is apparelled for burial, sinking gradually as the tapes are tied over, till the swaddling shape touches the floor, and there is no protest against the indignity of hasty disposal. At the last moment, Lowndes was seized with scruples of conscience. "Ought you to read us the service from beginning to end?" he said to Spursto. "I intend to. You're my senior as a civilian. You can take it if you like." "I didn't mean that for a moment. I only thought if we could get a chaplain from somewhere. I'm willing to ride anywhere and give poor Hummel a better chance. That's all." "Bosh!" said Spursto as he framed his lips to the tremendous words that stand at the head of the burial service. After breakfast they smoked a pipe in silence to the memory of the dead. Then Spursto said absently, "'Tisn't medical science." "What?" "Things in a dead man's eye." "For goodness' sake, leave that horror alone," said Lowndes. "I've seen a native die of pure fright when a tiger chivied him. I know what killed Hamel." "The deuce you do! I'm going to try to see." And the doctor retreated into the bathroom with the Kodak camera. After a few minutes there was the sound of something being hammered into pieces, and he emerged, very white indeed. "Have you got a picture? What does the thing look like?" "It's impossible, of course. You needn't look, Mottram. I've torn up the films. There was nothing there. It was impossible." "That," said Lowndes, very distinctly, watching the shaking hand, striving to relight the pipe, "is a damned lie." Mottram laughed uneasily. "Spursto's right," he said. "We're all in such a state now that we believe anything. For pity's sake, let's try to be rational." There was no further speech for a long time. The hot wind whistled without, and the dried trees sobbed. Presently the daily train, winking brass, burnished steel, and spouting steam, pulled up panting in the intense glare. "We'd better go on that," said Spursto. "Go back to work. I've written my certificates. We can't do any more good here, and work'll keep our wits together. Come on." No one moved. It is not a pleasant to face railway journey at midday in June. Spursto gathered up his hat and whip, and turning into the doorway said, "There may be heaven, there must be hell. Meanwhile, there is our life here. We L?" Neither Mottram nor Lowndes had any answer to the question. End of the passage.